The sterile white walls of the council chamber shimmered under the cold blue light. A single small chair stood in the center, facing a vast circular viewing screen. On the screen, a child, a human girl, no older than 8 years old, sat quietly. Her eyes were wide, a hint of confusion, then a flicker of fear. A harsh, alien voice, amplified for all to hear, echoed through the chamber. Humanity has violated interspecies protocols for the 83rd time. This child, Ilara, daughter of Ambassador Rostova, is a living example of humanity's unchecked growth and reckless disregard for established order. The girl shivered, her small hands gripping the arms of the chair. A tall, robed figure, Ambassador Zyler of the Vihara Collective, stepped forward, his multiple limbs moving with a slow, deliberate rhythm. He held a glowing, crystalline rod. By the unanimous decree of the Galactic Council, and as a stark warning, this child's existence must be terminated. Let this be a lesson. Humanity's expansion ends here. Ilara squeezed her eyes shut. The light from the rod flared, consuming her in an instant. The screen went blank. On Earth, Ambassador Eva Rostova stood in a small, quiet room. Her eyes were fixed on the flickering holoprojector. The image of her daughter, Ilara, dissolving into light played again and again. Her breath caught in her throat, a raw, guttural sound that never became a scream. Her hands, usually so steady, trembled violently. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. It was a tear of unbearable grief, but beneath it, a cold, hard ember of something else began to glow. Elder Kalen, his face a map of ancient lines, stood beside her. His own eyes, clouded with sorrow, held a profound, unsettling stillness. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. The weight of his touch was like solid rock. "Eva," he said, his voice a low rumble, "the time has come." Eva did not look at him. Her gaze remained fixed on the blank projector. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "it has." Hours later, the grief-stricken silence of Earth had given way to a quiet, focused activity. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in caverns untouched by sunlight for thousands of years, a new kind of silence hung in the air. Elder Kalen walked through a vast, echoing space. The air here was cool, dry, and carried the faint scent of ozone and ancient metal. Towering structures shrouded in dark, almost invisible tarpaulins lined immense caverns. Each structure was as large as a city block. These were not mere storage facilities, these were tombs. "The protocols have been activated," a voice announced, clear and calm from a comms unit attached to Kalen's wrist. It was Commander Jian Li, his tone betraying no emotion. "The primary maintenance sequences are now running. Power conduits are being brought online." Kalen nodded slowly. He ran a hand over a dusty console, its archaic symbols glowing faintly as power pulsed through it. This place was his life's work, his people's forgotten secret carefully preserved. He pressed a button. A low, resonant hum began to vibrate through the cavern floor, a sound that deepened the air, making it feel heavy. Dust motes danced in the sparse overhead lights, disturbed by the awakening. Commander Jian Li stood on a catwalk overlooking a cavern even larger than the first. Below him, thousands of human technicians moved with practiced efficiency. They wore reinforced suits, their faces grim but determined. They had been selected from the deepest parts of humanity's hidden support networks, engineers, pilots, and specialists whose entire lives had been preparation for this day. The ancient fleet, as it was known to those few who knew, was not just old. It was beyond old. Its technology was not merely superseded, it was fundamentally different, built on principles the current galactic community had never discovered. Li watched as massive gantries moved into place, preparing to remove the final, ancient seals from colossal ships. These vessels had been built at a time when humanity was not just young, but desperate, facing threats that had long since faded from galactic memory. Each ship was a testament to survival, designed for durability, for raw power, for endurance beyond normal limits. The air filled with the whine of massive motors and the clanging of metal on metal. The ground beneath Li's feet vibrated with the sheer energy now flowing through the vast complex. He could taste the metallic tang of newly energized circuits on his tongue. The air was thick with the dust of ages, stirred by the awakening machines. Lieutenant Anya Sharma, barely 20 cycles old, felt a shiver run down her spine. She had spent her entire life in orbital defense, learning the standard kinetic and energy weapon systems. Now she stood before a console unlike anything she had ever seen. The display was not holographic, but a series of interconnected crystal lattices, glowing with an internal shifting light. Its controls were not touchscreens, but an array of interlocking physical dials and levers. She had been assigned to the stalwart, a vessel that looked more like a mountain than a starship, its hull a dark, almost charcoal gray, rough and unyielding. The ship smelled of ozone, old oil, and something else, something metallic and sharp like a forgotten storm. Lieutenant Sharma, a voice crackled through her comms. It was her commanding officer, Captain Rax. Report to the primary bridge. We are initiating internal power cycling. Anya took a deep breath. She could feel the faint tremor of the ship's core coming to life, a deep thrumming that resonated in her bones. This was not the sleek, elegant vessels of modern Earth. This was something primordial, something raw. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council's primary orbital station, Vanguard Prime, Ambassador Xyler received a series of urgent messages. His 3 eyes swiveled on their stalks, processing the data. "Insolent humans," he hissed, a faint clicking sound accompanying his words. "They request additional time to prepare their response. They claim internal processing issues." A junior aide, a nervous, 4-limbed Cathar named Narvan, shuffled closer. "Ambassador, my sensors have picked up unusual energy signatures emanating from the Sol system. Very faint, almost imperceptible. Unlike anything we have catalogued." Xyler dismissed him with a wave of one of his lower limbs. "A mere anomaly, Narvan, perhaps a solar flare. Humans are primitive. They rely on outdated chemical propulsion for interplanetary travel. They possess no hidden reserves. Their pathetic orbital defense platforms are laughable. Their fleet is comprised of repurposed cargo haulers. They are merely stalling for time, perhaps hoping to garner sympathy." His chitinous plates gleamed under the station's bright lights. "They will learn their place." The execution of the human child was a necessary lesson, a clear message. "We showed them what happens when you disrespect the Council. They have no choice but to comply." Narvan bowed deeply, but his small, segmented eyes held a flicker of deep concern. He had spent months observing human trade routes, human settlements. He had seen their quiet innovation, their fierce loyalty. He knew there was more to them than Xyler acknowledged. The metallic tang of recycled air filled the Cathar's nostrils, making him feel slightly nauseous. Back on Earth, within the vast subterranean complex, Elder Kalen watched the immense doors of the primary launch base slowly, painstakingly retract. The heavy groan of ancient machinery filled the air. Beyond the opening, miles above, a sliver of natural light, pale and diffuse, filtered down. The Stalwart was the first vessel ready for departure. Its sheer size was breathtaking. It was not built for speed or grace, but for sheer endurance, for absorbing untold punishment, and for delivering devastating force. It did not have sleek curves. Instead, it bristled with heavy, reinforced plating and complex, multi-layered energy conduits that hummed with stored power. "The first 300 ships are at optimal readiness," Commander Lee reported to Kalen. His voice was calm, but his posture was ramrod straight, a warrior poised for battle. "The orbital launch conduits are clear. We await your command." Kalen looked at the distant sliver of light. He thought of Alara, of her small, innocent face. He thought of the billions of humans living their lives, unaware of the ancient protectorate that had always existed, always waited. "Tell Ambassador Rostova to initiate the final diplomatic phase," Kalen said, his voice flat. "Offer the Council one last chance to reconsider their actions. Inform them that humanity will not tolerate such transgressions." He knew their answer already. This was merely a courtesy, a final confirmation of the Council's unwavering arrogance. He could feel the slight vibration of the planet itself, as if it was holding its breath. The air in the cavern felt charged, heavy with unspoken power. Ambassador Eva Rostova, cloaked in a dark, simple diplomatic robe, stood before the holographic projection of the Galactic Council. Xyler, flanked by several other high-ranking council members, preened with self-importance. "Humanity's official response to the Council's just decree?" Xyler asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "We trust you have understood the gravity of your situation." Eva's face was a mask of cold resolve. Her grief was a deep, burning ache, but she buried it. She remembered Alara's small, warm hand in hers. "The people of Earth," she began, her voice clear and strong, "have considered your decree. We find it an act of unjustifiable aggression, a crime against innocence, and a profound violation of universal sentient rights." Xyler's 3 eyes narrowed. "You dare to question the Council's judgment?" Eva did not flinch. "We offer you an opportunity for immediate and full reparations. A formal apology for the unjust execution of a child, and a complete review of your Council's protocols regarding emergent species. Failure to comply will be met with the full and unwavering resolve of the human commonwealth." A stunned silence fell over the Council projection. Then, Zyler let out a series of clicks that sounded like mocking laughter. Reconsider. Reparations, you speak of resolve. You are a species barely 1,000 cycles old in space, confined to a single system. You have no resolve against the combined might of the Council. This is lunacy, his voice hardened. Your demand is rejected. The Council now issues its own ultimatum. Surrender all advanced technology, restrict your population growth, and accept direct Council oversight within 72 standard hours, or face the consequences of total blockade and punitive planetary bombardment. Eva felt a sharp pain in her chest, but it was not fear. It was the confirmation of their cruelty. Understood, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper filled with a terrible certainty. The consequences, Ambassador Zyler, will be borne by you. She terminated the connection. The holographic image of the Council dissolved into shimmering particles. The air around her felt heavy, electric. The faint scent of her daughter's favorite flowers, a memory, seemed to fill the room, twisting her gut. Back in the subterranean launch complex, Commander Lei received Ambassador Rostova's message. His face remained impassive. Begin launch sequence for the first wave, he commanded. The order echoed through the vast caverns, picked up by thousands of comms units. On the bridge of the Stalwart, Lieutenant Sharma gripped the ancient controls. The crystal lattices before her flared with brilliant light. The massive engines rumbled, a deep, earth-shaking sound that vibrated through the entire ship. She could feel the rising heat of the primary power core, a warmth radiating up from the deck plates. The ship was alive, waking from its long slumber. She inhaled deeply, smelling the mix of lubricants and the faint, sweet scent of newly activated energy. The first ancient ships emerged from Earth's deep space orbital defense network. They did not burst forth with a flashy, high-energy jump. Instead, they simply appeared, shimmering into existence from cloaked positions far beyond the usual sensor range. These ships were unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. They were not sleek, silver, or symmetrical. They were dark, jagged, and massive, like meteorites carved by an enraged hand, their hulls seemingly absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They moved with a slow, deliberate majesty, each one a fortress of unknown design. They were not few, they were hundreds, and behind them, appearing in waves, were thousands more. A silent, formidable armada. The scale of it was simply staggering. It stretched across the void, filling the space around Earth like a dark, glittering constellation. The sheer number of vessels, the raw power emanating from them, sent shockwaves through the local stellar region. The Council's punitive fleet, a small task force of 5 cruisers and a dozen destroyers, had just entered Sol system. They had expected an easy, quick show of force against a defiant, outmatched species. They were now surrounded. The comms on the lead Council cruiser, the Vanguard's Claw, crackled with panicked reports. Unidentified contacts, thousands, their energy signatures are off the charts, our cloaking detectors are useless. The captain of the Vanguard's Claw, a rigid reptilian Thragesh named KRL, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His scales bristled with alarm. He could feel the cold sweat gathering on his brow beneath his helmet. The air on his bridge, usually crisp and cold, suddenly felt thick and heavy. On the Stalwart's bridge, Lieutenant Sharma watched the Council fleet on her crystalline display. They looked like tiny, insignificant specks against the backdrop of her own fleet. Captain Rack stood beside her, his face grim but resolute. Targeting systems online, a sensor officer reported, her voice hushed with awe. We have multiple locks on the lead cruiser. The Stalwart itself emitted a low, powerful hum, like a sleeping giant slowly drawing breath. The air crackled with contained energy. Captain Rax raised a hand. Commander Lee's orders are clear, no unnecessary aggression. We demonstrate our capability, we do not destroy unless provoked. He looked at Anya. Remember the purpose of this fleet, Lieutenant. It is not conquest, it is protection. It is a shield forged from pain. Anya nodded. She felt a profound sense of responsibility, a weight that settled deep in her bones. She could taste the metallic tang of fear and anticipation on her tongue. Ambassador Zyler, still on Vanguard Prime, received the immediate reports. His 3 eyes rolled frantically. Thousands? This is impossible. Their entire fleet consisted of converted civilian vessels. These readings, they are astronomical. Envoy Narvan, the Cathar aide, stood quietly in the background. His segmented eyes watched Zyler with a new, quiet intensity. Ambassador, Narvan said, his voice surprisingly steady, I warned you of unusual signatures. My analysis indicated a hidden immense power source. You dismissed it. Zyler spun on his stalks. Silence, low-ranking drone. You suggest this human rabble possesses such might. It must be some sort of atmospheric distortion, a localized stellar phenomenon. But even as he spoke, his voice cracked with uncertainty. The fear was a bitter taste in his primary sensory organ. Back in Sol's system, the stalwart began to move. It did not use conventional thrusters. Instead, its massive hull shimmered with an internal light, and it shifted, almost imperceptibly, through space. The Council's Vanguard's claw launched a volley of plasma torpedoes, desperate to break the silent encirclement. The streaks of glowing energy sped towards the human fleet. Anya watched them on her display. They seemed so slow, so fragile against the vastness of the human ships. Incoming fire, a tactical officer announced. On the stalwart, the dark hull shimmered brighter, absorbing the incoming fire without a visible scratch. No shields flared. No explosions rocked the ship. The plasma simply dissipated against its surface like water hitting stone. Captain KRL's voice screamed over the comms from the Vanguard's claw. Their defenses, they are impenetrable. What is this technology? He could feel his scales crawling on his skin. He saw his energy readings plummet from the lack of any effect. Commander Jian Li watched from his flagship, the Sentinel, a vessel even larger and more ancient than the stalwart. His face was a mask of cold satisfaction. Activate the resonance emitters, he ordered. A focused pulse, set it to a non-lethal frequency but enough to disable their warp drives and comms arrays. The Sentinel responded with a low, deep thrum. A wave of invisible energy emanated from the human fleet, washing over the Council's task force. On the Vanguard's claw, alarms shrieked. Consoles sparked and died, lights flickered and failed. The bridge plunged into a terrifying dimness. Captain KRL watched in horror as his warp core indicators dropped to zero. His long-range comms array went silent. They were stranded. Their weapons, still capable of firing, were useless against the unyielding human ships. The silence that followed was broken only by the sounds of his terrified crew. The air, thick with the scent of ozone and burnt circuits, made it hard to breathe. Elder Kalen, now standing on a high platform overlooking the central command hub on Earth, watched the live feed. He saw the panic on the Council ships. He saw the cold, silent power of humanity's ancient fleet. Broadcast our message, he commanded, a direct galactic-wide transmission, unfiltered. The message was simple. Ambassador Eva Rostova stood before a backdrop of stars, her face calm, her eyes still holding a hint of deep sorrow, but now also unwavering resolve. This is Ambassador Eva Rostova of the Human Commonwealth, she began, her voice carrying an authority that resonated across light years. To the Galactic Council, and to all sentient species within the known galaxy. You chose to commit an act of unforgivable aggression against an innocent. You believed humanity was weak, scattered, and easily controlled. You believed our grief would make us cower. Her voice hardened slightly. You were mistaken. The vessels now surrounding your punitive fleet are not a threat to the peace-loving peoples of this galaxy. They are a testament to humanity's history, a memory of our resilience, and a shield for our future. They are a promise. Any further act of aggression, any further violation of our sovereignty or our rights, will be met with the full and overwhelming might of humanity's ancient guardians. She paused, allowing the message to sink in. We do not seek conquest, we seek justice, we seek respect, we will not be governed by fear. The era of unilateral council decrees based on arrogance and prejudice is over. The negotiations for a new galactic order will begin now, and they will begin on our terms. The broadcast ended. A new silence fell across the galaxy, a silence of stunned comprehension. On Vanguard Prime, Ambassador Zyler stumbled backward, his stalks trembling. The message had been clear. The images of the dark, silent armada surrounding their fleet were indisputable. Impossible, he shrieked. This is deception. A trick. Envoy Narvan stepped forward. His small, almost unnoticeable eyes held a deep, knowing calm. It is no trick, Ambassador. Their power signatures are stable, their fleet is real, and their technology, it is beyond anything we possess. Their hull density, their energy absorption, their ability to disable without destruction. These are capabilities we have only theorized about in our most ancient texts. Zyler glared at him. You knew, Narvan inclined his head slightly. I sensed discrepancies, I reported them, you chose to dismiss them. The other council members, projected as holograms, began to murmur, their forms shifting uneasily. Some began to disconnect. The unified front of the council was crumbling, replaced by fear and self-preservation. Zyler could feel the political ground crumbling beneath him. The air in the chamber, once filled with the scent of his own authority, now reeked of failure and desperation. In Sol's system, the human fleet held its position. It did not move, did not fire, but its presence alone was a crushing weight. The disabled council ships drifted helpless. Captain KRL on the Vanguard's claw finally spoke, his voice rough. "We are at their mercy." His communications officer, a young Thragesh named Zil, hesitantly activated a short-range emergency channel. "They are hailing us, Captain." "An open channel," KRL nodded slowly. A human face, calm and composed, appeared on the main view screen. It was Commander Jian Li. "Captain KRL," Li said, his voice deep and steady, "your fleet is disabled but intact. You are not under attack. We await the Council's response to our demands. For now, you will remain here. Any attempt to flee or to initiate hostile actions will be met with immediate and decisive force." KRL swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Understood, Commander." He looked at his crew, their faces pale with shock. He had expected to deliver a lesson. He had just received one. The smell of fear was thick in the air, a scent his reptilian nose knew well. Days turned into a week. The Council was in utter disarray. Xyler had been stripped of his authority, confined to his chambers. Envoy Narvan, surprisingly, had risen in prominence. His quiet foresight, once ignored, was now respected. He had accurately assessed the human threat, or rather, the human capability. Narvan pushed for a new delegation, a new approach. "We must show genuine contrition," he argued before the fractured council. Their message was clear. They want justice, not war, but they have the means to wage it if provoked. The other species, now terrified of Earth's hidden power, grudgingly agreed. A new diplomatic envoy was assembled, composed of species who had previously remained neutral or quietly sympathetic to humanity. Narvan was part of it. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders. He hoped this would bring a new era, not just for humanity but for the entire galaxy. The air in the council chamber, once dominated by Xyler's arrogance, now felt heavy with uncertainty and a new, cautious respect. The human fleet remained in position around Sol system, a silent, unmoving testament to their power. Life on the Stalwart settled into a strange routine. Lieutenant Anya Sharma spent hours poring over the ancient ship's schematics, understanding the unique energy systems, the multi-layered hull design that absorbed kinetic impacts rather than deflecting them, the resonance emitters that could disable entire fleets without a single shot. She learned the history of this fleet, how it was built in a time of deep, existential dread for humanity, a period of galactic darkness that the current council had long forgotten or dismissed as myth. This was not just a collection of warships. It was a living monument to human ingenuity and their fierce will to survive. She understood now that Earth's quiet progress, their seeming lack of a large military presence, was not weakness. It was patience, it was a choice to only unleash this hidden power when truly provoked. She could hear the soft, rhythmic hum of the ship's core, a lullaby of power and security. Elder Kalen watched the new council delegation arrive. Their ships were sleek, unarmed diplomatic vessels, approaching Earth with careful, respectful slowness. Ambassador Eva Ristova stood beside him, her face still etched with sorrow, but now also with a quiet strength. "They will negotiate," she said, her voice low. "They will accept our terms." Kalen nodded. "The child's death will not be forgotten," he said, his gaze distant. "But it will not be in vain. This fleet, it is more than just a weapon, Eva. It is a symbol, a promise, that humanity will never again allow itself to be made a victim, that we will stand for justice not just for ourselves but for all innocent lives in the galaxy." He felt the faint tremor of the ancient ships above them, a comforting, powerful presence. The air carried the faint scent of ozone, the breath of a sleeping giant now fully awake. The negotiations were long and arduous. Ambassador Ristova, supported by Elder Kalen's strategic guidance, presented humanity's terms. They demanded formal recognition of Alara's unjust execution, public apologies from the council members responsible, and substantial reparations. More importantly, they demanded a complete restructuring of the council's power dynamics, a shift away from unilateral decrees and towards true interspecies equity. They insisted on a universal charter of sentient rights, clearly defining protections against arbitrary judgment and execution. The council, humbled and terrified, grudgingly agreed to most of the demands. Envoy Narvan became a key figure in the new, reform-minded council. He understood that humanity's display of power was not a threat of conquest, but a demand for justice and balance. He could taste the bitter resentment of some of the old guard, but also the cautious hope of many smaller species. The galaxy began to change. Humanity, once dismissed as a minor, developing species, was now respected, even feared. Their ancient fleet, still holding strategic positions around Sol and other key systems, served as a constant, silent reminder of their resolve. Lieutenant Anya Sharma, now a seasoned officer, stood on the bridge of the Stalwart. The ship hummed beneath her feet, a powerful, living entity. She looked out at the vastness of space, knowing that somewhere out there, other worlds, other species were now safer because of the choices made on Earth. She felt the heavy weight of responsibility, but also a deep, abiding pride. The metallic scent of the ship, once alien, now felt like home. She understood that humanity's greatest strength was not just its technology or its cunning, but its fierce capacity for love, its unwavering commitment to justice, and its readiness to protect what it held dear, no matter the cost. The galaxy had learned a profound lesson. Humanity, pushed to the brink, would unleash not just ancient power but ancient fury, and that fury was now a force to be reckoned with. The stars, once a distant, unknowable canvas, now felt closer, filled with new possibilities and new challenges.